evening's lineup of agendas to order. And first on the agenda or the lineup this evening is the public hearing for the purposes of solicitation of citizen input regarding a proposed ordinance establishing a fair rent commission pursuant to Connecticut General Statute CGS Section 7148B et sec. Before I call that public hearing to order, could we all please stand and pledge the flag?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Could we have the public notice read into the record, please?
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Councilmen of the City of Torrington will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 15th, 2023, starting at 6:30 p.m. in the City Hall Auditorium, 140 Main Street, Torrington, Connecticut, to solicit public comment regarding a proposed ordinance establishing a fair rent commission pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 7-148B et seq. The full text of the proposed ordinance is available to the public online or in the office of the city clerk. The public may attend in person or by Zoom. In-person attendees will be granted up to 3 minutes to comment. Virtual attendees may submit their comments in writing to the city clerk before 4 p.m. on Monday, May 15, 2023. Written comments may be sent by email to city_clerk@torringtonct.org or by mail to 140 Main Street, Torrington, and will be forwarded to the Board of Councilmen in advance of the public hearing. All interested parties are invited to attend and be heard. Dated at Torrington, Connecticut, this 9th day of May, 2023.
Thank you, Heather. All right, at this point, I would open the floor for public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to address the council with regard to the ordinance? And if you would just come to the microphone, state your name, your address, and your comments.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Brenda DiCarlo, and I own a two-family home at 104 Church Street in Torrington. And my request for a change for the ordinance is written is to allow the 2 landlord positions on the committee, not require them to be Torrington residents. As long as you own property in Torrington, you'd be eligible to serve on the commission.
Thank you, Brenda. Floor is open still. Comment, Kevin?
Well, there was only 2 of us on the list. Good evening, Kevin Hayes, Torrington resident. It's on the first page, section A, complaint of hearing procedure. The first line, upon receipt of complaint by any fair rent commissioner member. That, I believe, should be changed to something along the line of after complaint filed at city clerk's office, where it could be time stamped. This represents, if I'm in the business, which I have been, one of my tenants, and I'd say I was, as an example, I was on that commission. Somebody comes up to me and says, Kevin, my rent was unfairly raised $100. My name was Bob Smith, and it's Friday afternoon. I was officially notified. I don't have name, I don't have notes. I'm in a grocery store. Now what? So if it reads as delivered at clerk's office, it's time stamped, it's delivered with a format that would, I'm sure corporate counsel will have some type of standard format that that person will fill out. And then that would work out well. Now, maybe later in the other rules and regulation, it will state on how a complaint is filed. Because right now it says to any board member. So again, that's, what's the word, subjective. You can just meet someplace out in the street. That's really on this 2 pages, that was my only concern on that one, is that you open it up to any board member in a casual atmosphere being labeled as officially notified. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. The floor is still open. Are there other questions or comments? Mr. Kindeffer.
Tom Kindeffer, 1821 Winston Road. I'm in agreement with the previous 2 comments, but I'll be saying more. I had submitted a couple of weeks ago to the ordinance committee some comments, but since they've revised the ordinance, I've thought some more about it, and I've revised my comments, which I've made copies for you. In that first section, I also do agree that that you can have membership by non-resident landlords. I think they would be that would be appropriate. Then as far as when I get into the membership or appointments section, it seems like there's some wording in there that might work in a separate section. As you look at the draft in this subsection A, I would say the first sentence up to let's see. Wait a minute. Let's see. Appointment of members. There's a section that talks about their duties. You know, the powers that they have to studies and things. I think that should be in a separate section, which could be titled powers and duties. And then in that new section, you could include in there that something like the commission may adopt rules for the transactions business subject to the approval of the city council, and because it's a little uncertain to me where you should have something in the ordinance and something you should have in the procedures. You know, where do you include that? I think for brevity, you can make this ordinance concise, and then some details could be worked out in the procedures. But I think there's some critical things that you should have in there. And one other thing I thought about was maybe the record keeping issues that this commission is going to have meetings. They're going to have hearings, and they're going to issue some sort of a memorandum of decision. So when they do when this commission does that, they should, file a copy should be filed with town clerk. You may already have this covered. I think generally you may have it covered in your in the charter where it says people can submit things to the submit things to the town clerk. And then now in the section complaint and hearing procedure, I'm suggesting, besides as Kevin had stated, submitting it to the town clerk, I'm also saying that it should be in writing on an online form, or one that could be downloaded downloaded and they could hand carry it in. This seems to be a common practice of other towns that have already doing this. The and that filing of the form, puts a certain burden on the tenant to explain all the details, because all these housing situations could be different. They could have what's included, the rent, in the rent is it how so many rooms, so many, is it furnished, or is what types of utilities are included. So that would help in that the investigator would have a good start when he looks at that form. He could say he have a good starting point to do the investigations. Now as far as you mentioned, the ordinance mentions these ex officio members, zoning, blight, building department. There is an item in the which was in the model ordinance, which you first looked at, that talks about you could get the complaint that you're getting for the housing thing could involve code enforcement issues. So I think it would warrant, it would kind of explain why these other ex officio members are there, because there's if you get a complaint and it seems to involve something that may be a code violation, then this section from the model ordinance would allow you to notify the appropriate office, and they would exercise their own initiative to and powers to investigate the situation. So I think that should be added. And then the subsection B of that same complaints and hearings, this is going to be an all volunteer group, and there may be, for some reason, that you're setting up a timetable which is not mandated by the state. So I'm suggesting adding unless impracticable, which seems to be a legal term which other towns have used in there when they specify a time period, but also allowing a little bit of flex in case for some reason you can't complete it within that time. And then I'm suggesting another thing be added about giving the parties involved sufficient notice before this hearing is conducted, because the whole idea of having a hearing is you want both parties to be there and present and represented, if that be the case. And then one last thing on subsection C of that same section on complaints, it seems like the first sentence would be complete. You're asking to you're going to issue a memorandum of decision, period, I think would be enough. You're probably getting into too much procedures when you expand it that way. So that's basically my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Candeffer. The floor is still open for comments.
The rules and regulations, or just what was posted on the internet, that state section on. the 2-page. Are you voting on just that?
I don't know that there'll be a vote tonight. I think the council may find that this may be better
Okay.
tabled and sent back to the
All
ordinance
right.
committee.
That gentleman was going over other things that were beyond what's here, so I was getting a little thrown off.
Confused is, yeah.
Just on a proposed chapter, Fair Rent House City Ordinance, Code of Ordinance. Is that the only thing you're gonna be possible for vote? Or is there the other rules and regulations?
That's the only thing on the agenda. Yeah.
So the,
Change, though.
the ordinance itself is, it's more than 2 pages. I have
3
1, 2, 3, 4
Well,
pages.
this is all I got off the internet.
Is that depending on what size your print is? And it's
Yeah, that's all I got. It
Yeah.
ended at appeals of trial. so that's
appeals and
why-
trial. That's it. Yep, that's the right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
Smaller print.
yeah.
okay,
That is, so that looks like you have the right document. That would be what the board would be voting on for an
okay,
adoption of
so that's the only
ordinance.
topic of discussion this evening.
Right, it is, yes.
Thank you for letting me come back up.
Sure. All right, other questions or comments or recommendations? Right, because it's a public hearing, I need to do that 3 times, so I'll call it 2 more times. Are there any other members of the public that wish to address the board with regard to the ordinance on Fair Rent Commission? And final call for comments to address the, or recommendations to address the proposed ordinance establishing a Fair Rent Commission. Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I will declare the public hearing closed. Public hearing is closed. Okay, we'll move right into this evening's regular agenda. And for the record, it is 6:47 PM. And we'll move right into item 1. I will, I'm not sure if the board is ready to make a motion on this ordinance or to table.
I'd like to make a motion.
There is the,
To table
oh,
it.
sorry, Armand.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it's-
Councilman.
Seconded.
To table. sorry.
Okay, so the motion, there's a move to table. Do I have a second?
I've seconded.
So I have Councilman Minichi, I have Councilman Waldron, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, still work to do. We expected that. This is a
Brand new.
complicated ordinance.
Brand new.
But we do have a deadline of July 1st, so we'll keep working at it. I'll move into item 2. I'll entertain a motion by the Board of Councilmen to adopt the proposed changes to Chapter 128 of the Code of Ordinances, Solid Waste. Do I have a motion?
I move it.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
I move it. I
Second.
don't know if you can hear me.
I can. Can you hear me?
Okay.
You can hear you.
Yes, and seconded by Councilman Minichia. Are there questions or comments on this motion?
Just a comment, Mayor, and I apologize. I hate that being the chairman of the ordinance committee, I'm not present. I'm not crazy about being on Zoom, but I did want to comment that I do think we are ready, for a vote of the council this evening. As you know, we've put lots of work into this ordinance, massaged it, did several edits of it. And it's not to say as we move forward, nothing's set in stone, that it can't be modified as we work with the ordinance, since it's it's been revised substantially. So fortunately, our Public Works Director, Ray Drew, if he's on Zoom or if he's there, made that comment as well, that they're certainly open to modifications of this ordinance. But as an ordinance committee, all 3 of us moved to have it on the council agenda for a vote tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Other questions or comments? I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. We'll move into item 3.
Quick question there.
Yes.
It says roll call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. It does.
Yeah.
I apologize for ordinances. That is a requirement. So Let me go back and take that vote to the Zoom participants. Councilwoman Ruette,
Yes.
Councilman Oliver,
Yes.
Councilman Waldron,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hona,
Yes.
Councilman Menichia.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, I appreciate that. Item 3, I'll entertain a motion to open the meeting to the public in accordance with Section 4E of the City Council and WPCA meeting rules of procedure.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Councilman Waldron, seconded by Councilman Menichia. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? We are open to the public for comments. Seeing and hearing none. Mr. Candefer.
Council Deffer, 1821 Winston Road. Just one last comment on the fair rent. I just brought up to this distinction between the ordinance itself and what has to go on afterwards. It's going to take we have the deadline, as you said, July 1st, just to get the ordinance approved. Now, beyond that, you're going to have a period of time to select all the 7 members. And then on top of that, once you have all 7 members, they have to kind of group with guidance from Corporation Council on how to structure their organization. So that's just a clarification there. But back now, I'm going to go on to the solid waste, making some comments there. I know I had tried to incorporate the clothing donation bins as part of the ordinance because would involve littering, but I can agree with the comment by Ray Drew that perhaps it could be handled separately. And also, I've also approached Jeremy Leifer to consider the collection bin as a zoning regulation. And I've given him information on one town, Plainfield, where they do both. They have it in the zoning, where they're requiring permits and things. And then zoning refers to the ordinance where it has the enforcement by the police on the issues. So I'm comfortable with that we can pursue that separately. And then I also like to mention that we have the recycling reduction solid waste task force, and members would be, at least I would be glad to start any meetings about getting the word out, whether like the senior center or other locations where we could kind of invite residents to come and we could kind of walk through the ordinance. So just offer that.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much. Other comments or in the public comment portion of the meeting? All right, if there are no other public comments, I'll move into item 4. I'll entertain a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes from May 1st, 2023.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Hona.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Menichia. Questions or comments on those minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 5 is, it doesn't require a motion. There's a presentation from Walden Renewables on battery storage. And Jamie, yes, Jamie Sikora, our Director of Facilities, is here.
Hello. This is a potential energy project that we're looking at for battery storage on the landfill. It's just another energy project we're looking to entertain. So I have Dale Knapp from Walden Renewables. He's going to give a quick presentation on it. And I think you have the handout and there are some slides.
Thank you, Jamie.
Evening, Mayor, members of the Torrington City Council. I see you have a pretty packed agenda, so I included some company background here. I'll try to keep that brief and then sort of focus on the purpose and need of the project, kind of why Torrington and what the potential benefits might look like for the city. So my name is Dale Knapp. I'm the head of development in New England for Walden Renewables. I've been working in the energy sector for my entire career, which is closing in on 23 years now. I'm a professional wetland scientist, a soil scientist, and a siting professional. And what is been the focus of Walden in New England since 2011 has been solar, wind, and more recently, battery energy storage systems. So you could probably skip ahead to maybe our portfolio past the headshots and who we are and who we work with. The one with this picture on it. Sure, perfect. So as you can see, based on this image here, we work across the entire East Coast, kind of covering everything east of the Mississippi. Our core market is New England, but we do have a second team that focuses on the Southeast, MISO and PJM, where we have much larger facilities down there. Where they're looking at 400 megawatt wind projects. Our largest in New England, primarily solar, are like between 20 and 50 megawatts. So we can talk a little bit about some specific Walden projects that we actually have built here in New England. So the first big facility that we were successful with was the Antrim wind project. It's been operational for a few years. It took about 10 years to develop that project. Certainly in New England, wind is pretty contentious, but we were happy to be successful with that. Another large project, next is in Potter. This project is also built operational, another large grid scale wind facility. And then the next project here is a solar project that's been operational in Wells, Maine for a couple of years, a small DG project. On the next slide, it kind of gives an overview, one more, of the next slide shows our pipeline. So this kind of represents, our full portfolio, and I'm sorry to bore you with the details. I just want to make sure that we have a track record as an established company. We're here because we've done due diligence on this substation, and that we have kind of the financial capacity, the capital and the expertise, so that we're not here in a speculative way. We permit and build projects. So that's the primary purpose, I guess, of the intro slides. So if we can move on to the next slide, it kind of outlines primarily why I'm here today. And so down on South Main Street, there's a Connecticut Light and Power substation. And so over the past year or so, we've been trying to prepare to respond to a market demand for battery energy storage across all of ISO New England. So we have projects that we're working on in Maine, New Hampshire, and Connecticut. And we have engaged with a consulting engineer to identify strategically where injection points exist in the ISO New England system that would position a battery to respond to both capacity events as well as support energy storage as we see the proliferation of renewables kind of continue across our grid. You probably heard some rumblings about this in the news, a lot of talk about battery storage being the next kind of key puzzle piece to move us away from dependency on fossil fuels. So that substation is a strategic location. It also has the injection capacity to sort of fall in line with what we're trying to do regionally across New England. Conveniently, immediately adjacent to that substation is the former landfill property. It's city-owned property that in the conversations that I've had with Jamie and Ray, it doesn't sound like it's being used for much. Recognize there's a solar facility, I think, proposed and permitted on the landfill portion of the property. But there's a small piece down by the railroad tracks that would be very suitable for a battery system. Again, kind of the purpose and need is to respond to grid demand with a capacity resource. And as we see more of these batteries, I was actually on a call in Maine earlier today where they're talking about this is a need for both resilience. They can function, I guess, capacity events when you have a crisis on the grid. And these battery systems not only serve as storage for renewables, they're also a dispatchable resource. We can kind of throw the switch when you need it and retaining kind of a portion of that battery storage so that when you have peak demand, you're pushing onto the grid. You know, ISO is still working on how specifically to integrate these resources in the best way possible. But, you know, the lead time on permitting and interconnection is years. So I'm here to sort of gauge your interest and answer questions well in advance of when we'll be trying to sort of push the project forward. There are significant payments tied to the lease. The underlying lease would be with the city. And so we're paying kind of on a per acre price. We would expect also to be a taxpayer here in Torrington as well for the operational life of the facility. And so, you know, the other piece that's probably worth mentioning is that sometimes we get concerns about sort of, you know, fire or other components tied to battery storage. Obviously, technology is advancing very rapidly, but most of these systems come in kind of a pre-built sort of a roll-off container. And within them, they have fire suppression, you know, a tremendous amount of control within that system. And so they're almost like Lego blocks. They're sort of stackable. Oh, yeah. So here's the site, sorry, that I was talking about. You can see in that green outline, it's about 5 acres. Obviously, very preliminary, you know, based on what I've discussed with Ray and Jamie. But, you know, access, you know, would be something we'd have to sort out in terms of equipment delivery and all that, you know, if we get to that stage. So the last slide is some images. We got second to last slide. This is typically, you know, they look like kind of transformer cabinets. They come pre-assembled. And all you really need is a concrete pad and a plug into the grid. And so the last slide in your packet here is kind of, again, a rough preliminary breakdown of what a lease payment would look like over the first 30 years of the operational life of the project at $6,000 per acre per year, expecting we would occupy about 5 acres. So sorry if that was a little disjointed, but happy to answer questions that you have. Again, it's a very preliminary conversation, just kind of trying to gauge the interest of the city, what we think is a good project for the city and the region.
Thank you. Questions?
I have a question.
Comment, Councilman Mitchell?
Question on the proposed payment terms. How did you derive at these numbers?
So we kind of do a pro forma for the project, kind of what the carrying capacity would look like. And we also look at what the land is worth kind of on the market. We offered initially to purchase the land outright. It represents a larger upfront cash payment, but in conversations with Ray and Jamie, it sounds like that could be fairly complicated. And also the long-term, the lease revenue certainly would be larger. That's what the project can carry.
Thank you.
Mayor, I just had a question. So this is down at the south end. I know the solar company that was interested. I don't know where it is, and it just seems like you got a lot going down at the south end at this point as well. Not that it's in a residential area, but I would like to learn more about this. I feel like, you know, we've gotten more solar projects than we're really excited about. At least I speak for myself. And I don't know. I think there's more to learn, and I really trust Jamie and Ray and, presenting this, this kind of proposal to us, but I'm a little hesitant to move forward. But
There's no request for action this evening.
right,
This
I
is
realize.
just an opportunity to learn about, how we can capitalize on this
Sure.
otherwise very challenging piece of property to develop, and create a full articulation of renewable energy sources. So Jamie has, if you want to answer some of those
Yeah, so
questions.
the solar is at the very top of it. If you look back at that other slide, that's kind of the flattest part of the land. You cannot put solar on a huge incline. So this area here is not really prone or would suit solar. In the green there at the bottom, that's more sloped. So these would be concrete pads that would almost kind of be tiered. So that's why this land is kind of useless in a way for solar. And the battery storage is more for the whole grid, separate from the solar. It's just land that kind of is not usable for much, but it would make sense for the battery storage, which is why we've even entertained this whole thing, because it kind of allows us to utilize almost all this unusable land for these kind of projects. If that better answers your question.
Thank you, Jamie. Yes, it does.
To touch on Jamie's point, I think that's something important that I overlooked in my initial rambling was this would connect at a transmission scale. So we're tying directly into that substation. So it wouldn't have any sort of local grid impacts to your existing solar facilities that are permitted. Those are going to be interconnecting kind of to roadside distribution. This is a transmission project. So it's stepping up onto the grid and serving not just Torrington, but sort of the surrounding area as well. And, from a siting perspective, one of the things we look at often is as you noted, proximity to residential development, sort of natural areas that might be worth protecting. Obviously, this site has been significantly disturbed. And so when it comes to siting projects, we look to place our infrastructure on areas that have already been impacted by development. And this site certainly fits the bill. I know there's explosives storage kind of on the other side of the T line, obviously the landfill, the tracks, the substation, quarries and pits. So siting kind of energy projects in close proximity to other industrial infrastructure is what we do. We try to do.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Juana.
I admittedly know nothing about battery storage, but this is all super exciting. Are there, so you're laughing, I just sort of like, sure, go with the energy, let's do it. You get paid through like whatever source then pay you for storing their energy? Is that how you would make money?
So there are different ways. So Pura is doing a procurement now specifically to have capacity resources that kind of meet their need for capacity events. And that's the program that we would likely target with this facility. There are batteries in other parts of New England that are operational today, and they are more of an arbitrage. So essentially when, demand charges are low, they trickle power into the battery. And then when the price of power goes up, they trickle it back out. Those are primarily owned and operated by large scale, like energy giants like Eversource. We're looking to compete in procurements to meet capacity need.
How much manpower would it take to build it? Like how many jobs would be created and how long does it take to set it up?
It would probably take about 8 months. I mean, there's some limited civil work. We typically use local contractors for all of our civil work. We're not going to bring, dump trucks from Texas. Obviously the equipment moves in and is shipped. So you prepare all the pads, you hit equipment delivery, a lot of electrical work, heavy demand for electricians. If you know any, we're looking for them everywhere. And so, it's probably maybe 80 to 100 people working on site. There would be, some limited need for periodic maintenance, but once it's up and running outside of those kind of inspections, just to check in on the facility, you're not going to see traffic. Once it's built over that 8-month period, it just sits there, pays into the city, draws, there's no demand on your local infrastructure or resources, no water, no sewer, no plow, no maintenance, it's obviously all on the project.
And are you looking for other sites in Connecticut to do the same
Yes.
thing?
We are. So we have sort of targeted 4 other nodes, all moving east of here. So in total, I think we have 15 targeted sites. Of those 15, I don't think we'll be successful with all of them. But we hope to have 10.
And what are you imagining would be like a perfect timeline?
So a key component of the timeline would be having some demonstrated land control. So some type of a letter of exclusivity for a gap period or an option to lease. That puts us in a position where we can start directly working with Eversource or Connecticut Light and Power to time out the interconnection. It's a tremendous lead time. And so we're talking about years before we reach, the end of a system impact study. So we're hoping that, it could be something we would resolve at least the option this summer. Obviously that just puts us in a position to pursue the process with CLP and Pura. Permitting of the facility would probably be, a couple of years out. We wouldn't expect to be operational here if, all the stars align, probably for 4 or 5 years.
Thank you. Other questions from the council? So then what I'd like to do is just invite the council members as you read through this PowerPoint presentation and have questions. If you could direct them to Jamie Sikora. And we will obviously want to bring this back to the council to make sure that any unanswered questions or asked questions, can be done so in a public way. So
Absolutely
we'll follow
happy
up
to
with that.
put together another packet that's more specific than, hey, it's me, I'm great, I do renewals.
Okay. All right. All right, if that's it, Ray, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, again, we would have to bring this back to the council. As obviously, we're not requesting any action here tonight. As you're aware, we have a lease option with US Solar for the solar array on the top of the landfill. That is progressing. We are finalizing the layout details. They are in the 3rd year of their lease option agreement. So they have to exercise this come July for their lease option. So we're working out the layout details. Once we work that out, where that array is going to be, then that relinquishes, because the lease option with US Solar is on the entire landfill. So we got to kind of clear that piece up to entertain a lease option with Walden Renewables. So that's what we're working through right now. Once we're finalizing exactly where the solar array will be, that will free up the rest of the landfill for us to do this project or other energy renewable projects. It's been a long road trying to get something there at the landfill. So I think we finally reached that point with the solar field, and if we can do a project with Walden Renewables that supports the grid, I think, and then even looking at other energy renewable projects at the landfill. And we have 110 acres up there, so there's still potential to do more work up there. So that's going to be the next steps. Once we get through a couple hurdles, working, and then bring it back to the council for further action.
Thank you, Ray. Yeah, please.
Maybe it's a question for Jamie. I don't know. Is Walden the only company that does this? Is there a reason why we're only talking to them? Like, did you find them? Did you find us?
They found us. There was only battery storage company that reached out to us. We didn't do an RFQ. We didn't do an RFP. We weren't looking for a particular another project. And as we want to kind of bring it forward to just kind of give some exposure to the council. And, give you kind of that package. Hopefully you'll generate some questions, and send them our way. And then we can get you any additional answers to. But no, we didn't seek them out. They sought us out. Because as Dale said, they kind of look at, you kind of got to find the right piece, right? If our landfill wasn't next to the substation, they would have never reached out to us. Because because this is feeding the transmission system, which is different than what the solar is doing. They needed to be next to a substation, which, as you can see from that drawing, we're right next to that substation.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what really drew us to Torrington was, proximity to interconnection is a key driver, site suitability. So again, an area that's been previously impacted, doesn't have any listed species, not proximate to residential areas, a location we could put this and it wouldn't bother anybody. And then, availability and interest, is Torrington interested in potentially receiving revenues for development on this land? So those are kind of the three factors that we look for. And, it was really the engineering study that brought us to Connecticut. And I've been out here a few times. I've seen the site. It's really suitable. And I got no problem driving back out here a half a dozen times if that's what it takes. Because I like it. I'm from Maine. Sorry, I didn't mention that earlier. And I've done a lot of work in sort of, I don't know, what is it, the northern portion of Connecticut. I like it, Ron. Seems familiar. Sorry, unnecessary.
All right. Final call for questions on the presentation. All right, more to come.
Thank you
Look
very
forward.
much.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move into item 6. I need to get a motion to schedule a public hearing on Monday, June 5th, 2023 at 6:30 PM regarding proposals for participation in the 2023 Neighborhood Assistance Act program.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ruette. Seconded by Councilman Menichia. Are there questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, I need a motion to schedule a public hearing by City Council here and acting as the Water Pollution Control Authority on June 5th, 2023 to set the sewer user fee for the period of July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024. For the record, the proposal is the residential user fees in an amount not less than $346 and not more than $430 per dwelling unit. And for all other users, an amount not less than $346 and not more than $430 per 65,000 gallons of volume. So that would be the motion or the notice for the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Waldron.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Menichia. Are there questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, on recommendation of the facilities manager and the purchasing agent, I'll entertain a motion to extend the current bid contract for on-call maintenance and repair of HVAC equipment for fiscal year 23-24 at the same prices and terms as the current contract to Temp Mechanical Services, Inc. of Southington, Connecticut, as further explained in purchasing agent's letter dated May 9th, 2023.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Menichia.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Waldron. Are there questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, on recommendation of the facilities manager and the purchasing agents, I'll entertain a motion to extend the current bid contract for electrical services and repairs for fiscal year 23-24 at the same price and terms as the current contract to First Line Services LLC of Cromwell, Connecticut, as further explained in the purchasing agent's letter dated May 9th, 2023.
So.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hona, second by Councilman Waldron. Questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, on the recommendation of the Director of Services for the Elderly and Purchasing Agent, I'll entertain a motion to extend the current bid contract for snow plowing services for the Senior Center facility for fiscal year 23-24 at the same price and terms as the current contract to Roberts Property Management LLC of Northfield, Connecticut, as further explained in purchasing agent's letter dated May 9th, 2023.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Minichia. Second by Councilwoman Hona. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 11. I'll entertain a motion on the recommendation of the interim director of recreation and the purchasing agent to authorize the mayor to award the contract for the 2023 fireworks display to Zambelli Fireworks Manufacturing Company of Warrendale, Pennsylvania for $24,000, as further explained in the purchasing agent's letter dated May 9th.
So.
Thank you, Councilman Minichia. Seconded by Councilwoman Hona. Questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, I'll entertain a motion to renew the contract dated May 11, 2021 with Still River Gardens LLC of Litchfield, Connecticut for the design, planting, and maintenance of the downtown garden beds, planters, and trees based on terms and conditions as set forth in said contract.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Minichia.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Waldron. Questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 13, I'll entertain a motion by the City Council here enacting as a Water Pollution Control Authority to approve the following payments from Fund 490, the sanitary sewer capital improvement. This would be an invoice payable to Wright Pierce Engineers and the sum of $5,370.91 for pre-designed study and report on the Toro siphon.
So moved.
I heard Councilman Minichia and Councilwoman Rouette.
Second.
Questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Aaron Stelma as a regular member of the Conservation Commission, filling the remainder of a term set to expire September 4th, 2025.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Minichia. Second by Councilman Waldron. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 15, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Randall Stelma as a regular member of the Inland Wetlands Commission, filling the remainder of a term set to expire September 5th, 2023.
So moved.
You, Councilman Minichia.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Hona. Questions? And if you're going to ask me how they're related, I'm going to tell you I don't know.
Believe it or not.
The night out.
Really, date night. If there are no questions, I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 16, I'll entertain a motion to accept the building department's report on April 2023.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilwoman Minichia, Councilman Minichia, Councilwoman Rouette, seconded. Questions or comments on the report? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 17, I'll entertain a motion to authorize a release of liens listed in Corporation Council's memo dated May 15, 2023.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Minichia.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Hona. Questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. 18, I'll entertain a motion to accept the recommendation of the tax collector and authorize the tax refunds indicated in list dated May 15, 2023.
So
Thank you, Councilman Waldron.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Hona. Questions or comments on this motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 19, I'll entertain a motion to accept the recommendation of the tax collector and authorize sewer usage refunds indicated in the list dated May 15, 2023.
So moved.
I heard Councilwoman Hona and a second by Councilman Walden. Questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 20, I'll entertain a motion to consider business by department heads.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Waldron, second by Councilman Menichia. Questions? I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We are open anyway. Anything this evening, Mr. Towsey from WPCA? All right, thank you. Treasurer, City Treasurer's Office, anything, Dan? All right. Ray Drew, anything from Public Works?
So the recycling group held their distribution of the rain barrels and composters, and I believe it went well. 22 were sold. It was a short window, and so I guess there's been discussions to have a more extended purchase time for the rain barrels and composters, so that went well. We had the first skate park visioning session last Thursday, and that went actually extremely well. Great participation. Even had a member of the building committee participated in the exercises and the development of the initial design. So that went well. We'll have another one in about a month. So I just want to bring you up to date on a little bit of that. And we are zeroing in on a new recreation director. So we're hoping that we have a second interview on Wednesday. So we're hoping that we can attract this individual, which the committee felt was extremely talented and extremely energetic and would be a great addition to Torrington. So there were just some really kind of quick updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Anything else to add this evening, Jamie? Facilities? Okay, City Clerk's Office? Corporation Council?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move into item 21. I'll entertain a motion to consider by mayor and members.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Councilman Waldron, second by Councilman Minichia. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? To the screen, anything this evening, Councilman Oliver?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Rouette?
I just want to thank those that came out for the public hearing on the Fair Rent Commission. We're doing our best to, integrate those comments, and we'll continue to integrate some of those comments and suggestions into the ordinance. And I think Tom said it best, that we want to keep the ordinance succinct and leave it up really to the commission members in terms of, more detail in the regulations. So appreciate those comments. We do need to have a deadline by statute to have this commission or this ordinance completed by July 1st. So we will need to move fairly quickly to do those revisions, and the ordinance committee meeting. We did schedule another date. I can't look at Heather at this point, but soon, so that we can
Okay.
modify or edit those that ordinance. So, but I do want to thank, those that came out, as well as the public hearing, or as well as the vote for the solid waste ordinance tonight. It's been a long time coming, and a lot of work on the part of Ray Drew and his team. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Waldron,
Nothing for me. Thanks, man.
Councilwoman Hona, Councilman Minichia.
Nothing.
Sorry, tripping over my words there. All right, so moving into item 22. I asked him first. Yeah. Did you nap?
No,
Item number 22, I'll entertain a motion to open the meeting to the public for comment on agenda items only. Thank you, Councilwoman Hona.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Menichia. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, again, to the board or the public on agenda items only, if you have public comment. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting so we can open the budget meeting. So do we have a motion to adjourn the regular council meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Menichia. And seconded by Councilwoman Hona. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's move into the next one. Budget, yay. So you all remember Robin, our
Mhm.
fearless comptroller, who, for the record, let me open this special budget meeting to order. So for the record, it is now 7:30 PM. And participating both via Zoom and in person. Zoom, I have Councilman Oliver, Councilwoman Ruette, and in person, Councilman Waldron, Councilwoman Hona, and Councilman Menichia. So before I jump into how we're going to review this evening, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the budget subcommittee. We had representation, as we've always done in the past. 2 members from the city council. This year was Councilman Menichia and Councilwoman Hona. 2 members from the Board of Safety. I had Commissioner Cogswell and Commissioner Benedetto, and 2 members from the Board of Finance, who obviously can't get enough of the budget review. I have Ms. Pesky and Mr. Bagus. And we did have many meetings doing the deep dive and the detail of the budgets with recommendations. So I wanted to express my gratitude, and along with that, my gratitude to the department heads who also spent an inordinate amount of time preparing the budgets for the discussion at the budget subcommittee level. And that brings us where we are today. So I have 2 ways. I was debating how it would be most efficient or most complete to review the budget discussions this evening. We could do this one of 2 ways. There are a total of 45 departments, 46 departments. And the board, if we include the Board of Education, it's 47 departments. City Council does not need to approve or accept the Board of Education's budget. That's the job of the Board of Finance. We could take each department one by one, and I could do the 45 motions for the acceptance of each of these departments, or we could cut to the chase. You've all had the department worksheets, and we could go to the bottom line, and I could entertain a motion to accept the bottom line as amended at level 2 and level 3, which was the Board of Safety, and make that motion subject to the potential amendments, future amendments after the public hearing, which is scheduled for May 22nd. So I'll leave that to the board to tell me how you want to do this.
Can you just explain it to me?
Yeah.
Because so basically we're voting, I'm trying to look at what the bottom line is.
So in your, on your sheets, it would be the last 2 pages of your sheet. The last 2 pages have each department numbered 1 through 47, which includes contingency and the Board of Education. And it shows the department head request. Level 2, which was the mayor and the budget subcommittee review. Level 3, those were the Board of Safety approvals. We had our joint meeting with the Board of Safety last week. And then what would be considered the council review and approval level 3
And vote on them all as one lump.
as one lump. And I'm prepared to do this either way. I know it's 7:35. We can plow through this thing. So there's a record of each department request, what the increase is, and where that stands. If that's your preference, I'm prepared to do that.
I would
Yes.
just do the bottom line. and-
Of course you do. I figured the
I think
Zoom
it's-
people are gonna want to do the bottom line, but
Yeah.
let me do this in the form of a motion. Do I have a motion to review this department by department?
I would vote to do it department by department.
Okay, I have a motion on the table to review department by department. Do I have a second? All right. No second. Do I have a motion to approve bottom line
I move it.
Second,
and a second? All right.
second,
And I'll call that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, all right. All right, we'll go through this. Now, keeping in mind, the public hearing for a complete review of this budget is scheduled for the 22nd. That's a joint meeting with the Board of Finance. We will go through each of these departments at that time and questions or comments. And again, this evening, I'm not asking for an approval of the bottom line. I'm asking for an acceptance of the bottom line with the understanding that there will be potential amendments after the public hearing. So the motion I am looking for is a motion to accept the total proposed city portion of the department budgets in the sum of $68,161,588, which is an increase of $6,346,238 over last year's budget, subject to potential amendments as may be warranted after the public hearing. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Minichia.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Waldron. Questions, because we've got the bottom line, but there isn't any reason why questions on any of the individual department levels couldn't be asked at this point. I think the only thing that I would point out to this board, when you're looking at a $6,346,238 increase over last year's budget, I would think that one of the first questions that you'd all be asking is, what are those budget drivers? I can tell you that budget drivers for the vast majority, the largest budget drivers would be in department debt service. And that is both the principal and interest in Department 40 and 41. We are looking at a combined increase of $1,690,000 increase. And those are the direct results of the 2022 bond issuance and 2023 bond issuance. So that's the largest budget driver. We also have increases to capital projects. Those capital projects are the results of our planned restoration of capital that had been zeroed out in 2018. The plan had always been to restore that zeroed out capital over a 4-year period of time, bringing 25% back each year. But every budget year, we came across budget challenges, and the time for restoration of that has taken us much longer than we anticipated. And then another large expense item is you would see in the boards and agencies department, which is Department 3, a $200,000 appropriation for cannabis revenue qualified expenses. I made that phrase up myself, for what that's worth. So what do we know? We know with the cannabis revenue that we receive, that there are only certain expenses that would be qualified against that revenue. We don't know what that revenue is going to be, so we used a lump sum in this budget document you have in front of you of approximately $200,000. And we show that as an expense. The expenses obviously would have to be always measured against what that revenue is. I can tell you, since putting that sum in our budget document, Dan Farley had been tracking the revenue that we had been receiving, the reports that you had been receiving from Still River. And based on your projections, this item seems to be a little high. Right. So we automatically know that through this process over the next week, and for the Board of Finance over the next 3 weeks, that is a budget line item that will be reduced to be more in line with what we project that revenue to be. So, so those are the largest revenue drivers. Last year we budgeted in the building department and in planning and zoning, half positions. This year we are creating the full positions. The same thing happened in economic development and personnel. So in each of those departments, you'll see that those are now being budgeted at the full rate. And, you know, I always say this, it's usually the small amounts, but when you have 40 departments and they're small amounts, those pennies, quickly add up. And that's how we find ourselves at $6,346,238. Can you think of anything to add? Ouch, is that what you said?
No, it's health insurance.
Oh, health insurance was the other, but yeah, the other large. In pensions and benefits, Department 44, health insurance, that is also the department. When you're running your fingers down these columns, that is the other department where the differential is a little over $1 million. That also includes a set aside for contract negotiations. We are still in contract negotiations, arbitration actually, with the firefighters. That is, if the amounts are restored retroactive, we have to put in sufficient funds to cover retroactive pay. Our police department's negotiations, we know that this is a department that is exceedingly challenged in recruitment and retention. So we know that we have to be very serious about contract negotiations. And we have 2 other smaller bargaining units that are also in negotiations. That would be our supervisors union, UPSU, and along with UPSU would be our management resolution. So that is one of the other large budget drivers.
Could you tell me what line item that one is?
So if you were to go to Department 44, and
It's pension and benefits. All the way.
Pension
Are you looking
and
at summary?
benefits.
I was trying, my subsequent question is the $1 million a set, is that all inclusive, like a set aside and all that, or is that just $1 million for insurance?
no,
That's
no, no,
everything.
here.
It's
just-
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, so if you went to the detail, you'll see. That's what I was trying to remember. where I find it.
yeah. Are these pages numbered?
No,
No.
no. Too many different reports.
That's okay. 44 is fine.
Yeah. So, and just because you asked that, I do feel compelled to find. So what we did set aside for the officials' wages, wage increases, and again, because we're looking at retroactive, that is, oh, Lord.
Oh, we don't have the details here. You have any time?
662,000. The increase in the insurance was 475,000. There are a couple of line items where there were some reductions, but the net impact of those 2 line items and some reductions is 1,090,000.
On the health insurance, 7% is a little higher than trend. Are you seeing, right? Isn't it usually closer to 5 or I know that's pretty.
We had, last year, it went down I think for the first time.
That was gonna be
And
my
we were
next
even
question,
very
is nobody was
cautious
using
about that. But it's where the numbers were trending, but they're back up to normal.
Thank you.
So I think that is sort of in a nutshell. But now that you have this document, I think it gives you a week to digest it a little bit more, although the budget subcommittee has been living with this document since February. I'm expecting that there will be more questions at the next meeting on the 22nd.
So Mayor, I'm tending to vote no tonight. It's the increase, and I think no one's really we don't necessarily get in we're not diving deep into the budget, but if you look at the Board of Education plus the city budget, we're looking at an increase in our mill rate, and nobody really talks about that. But, I think the expectation that people I talk to in my circle is that our mill rate's high enough. And, restructuring, redesigning departments, I don't know what it'll take, but I did support the public safety budgets, last week. But I feel like there's a halo over my head here, but maybe it's the, constituents saying, it's too much of an increase. And I do appreciate the subcommittee's work. They've done a great job, pushing back and asking for departments to continue to look at their budgets and find some efficiencies and some savings. But my vote tonight will be no. So.
And if I may, the motion is not to approve the budgets. It is just to accept the budgets.
I look at it as both, you're accepting it, at this.
Yeah.
I know we're not approving it, but you're accepting what's, presented to us tonight. So.
Duly
One more.
noted. Yes.
Just a question. Have we had any more reliable revenue projections?
Well, that was one of the other reasons that I wanted this to be just an acceptance of this budget, not an approval,
have-
because with that debt service number that we identified, we know that there was a premium for the bonds that were sold, and that premium can cover a significant portion, if not all of that. Just the interest, correct. The car mill rate cap last year, as we know, was based on a prior grand list year. So we lost out on a 25% bump. This year, early reports, the governor's version of the budget, appropriations version of the budget included a last year's grand list. So we should see an increase in revenue there. We're still working with, a vast amount of variables. We don't know if those will make it through that budget process, but at least on the 22nd, I'll have a better idea. I think to Councilwoman Ruette's point, where these two budgets stand right now, without seeing what those additional revenues are, it would be a disservice to say, that we couldn't absorb some increase in these budgets. And I do believe that when the subcommittee reached a point where without that revenue information, they preferred that the message that came back to the council was, that the recommendation would be to continue to look at these budgets, find those cuts in context with the revenues that would minimize the impact to the taxpayers. And I believe the goal was to try to keep it at a 1 mil increase. I believe that was the motion that was made. And here again, we can have these conversations, but all of those decisions really bear on the shoulder of the Board of Finance members. But it certainly makes it a little bit easier if they get some good, strong direction from the council. So,
Back to Armin's question about revenue, aside from hoping we get some more from car taxes, there's not any growth in our grant list.
the grant list did, yes. So there was, unfortunately, motor vehicle and personal property is those are the largest growth sectors. Real estate was less than 1% growth. I know that I've started looking at, how other municipalities in and around us seem to be experiencing a much larger real estate growth. And I'm looking at a couple of pieces of property that just don't make sense to me, that they're assessed so low. And I did ask our assessor to look a little more closely at what those, what is going on in those contexts, especially any of those large-scale rental apartments that 50 years ago when they were built with a restriction, rent controls, which reduce the value of those. Now here they are 50 years later and they're coming off of some of those restrictions. And I just want to make sure that we're capturing that information. We are going into another mid-cycle reval. That's the perfect time for the assessor to really test those property values. But as it stands right now, what was submitted to OPM was, I think, a 0.11 increase in real estate. So
It's about $800,000
yeah,
additional.
yes. So there will be additional tax revenue, but it isn't grand. Yeah. Still open to questions. All right, if there are none, I will call this question and we'll pass this on to the public hearing and joint meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Aye, opposed.
Okay,
Opposed.
all right. So, and I'm guessing the opposed is the amount and the opposed is a deeper dive into the departments.
And a little.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. All right. So the motion does carry. We will move this on to the joint meeting and have more conversations next week. That being the only agenda item in the special meeting, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.